Welcome back to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs, and we're in the middle of a conversation with Shelley Herman. She's the author of the new book, My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. And if you'd like to purchase the book, go to her website right now at mypeacocktale.com. That's mypeacocktale.com. And last time we talked about the sad story of Joan Rivers and Johnny Carson never speaking to each other again after Joan left The Tonight Show to go to her own program on the Fox network, which ultimately didn't succeed. But Shelley, we've got other stories that are more positive, there's not just sad times, there's lots of good times in the book. Like when you met Jay Bernstein, kind of by, coincidence, you were asked to set up something for actor Christy McNichol.
No. It was a little bit different than that. For your listeners, Jay Bernstein, I didn't know this at the time, but was a very, very successful personal manager for all of the beautiful blondes that were around. And he worked his way up from the mailroom at William Morris and had quite the reputation of being, kind of a good PR guy. But this was back in the 70s. This was before he met Farrah Fawcett and Suzanne Summers and Linda Evans and some of the other blondes he would take on later. And I'm seeing him standing in the hallway between Studios 1 and 3, and he had a cane, and he looked kind of, disheveled. And I asked if he wanted a chair, and he said no. And I said, why are you here? Why are you here? And he said that his client was on The Tonight Show. And I said, well, who's that? And he said, Christy McNichol. And he says, she wants me to take her to Disneyland afterward. And I said, well, have you made any special arrangements for that sort of thing? And he said, no. And this is just me, putting on my Lucy Ricardo thinking cap and just being silly. And I just called Disneyland, and I said, the star of this TV show, and if you don't have special security for her, it could be a mob scene, and I'd hate for anybody to get hurt or have any problems when Miss McNichol got to Disneyland. So sure enough, I got the head of security's phone number, and they said as soon as they arrive, ask for this guy, and they got escorted into the theme park, and everything would be fine, and she'd go on the ride, and she'd leave. So this guy says, I owe you a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. And I'm thinking, he doesn't have 2 cents to rub together. And I'm thinking, no, keep the champagne. Everything will be fine. Just go have fun. And then fast forward 10 years later, I'm out of work. I find his business card and went, oh, that's that guy. Oh. And I called him up, and I wound up working as his head of development for 9 months.
Wow.
So, and then I have since met Chris. In fact, I have a picture of her. It might even be on my website. I'm not sure. But I asked her, I said, do you remember going to Disneyland? And she said, yeah. And I told her about it. I said, and that's how I knew they got the VIP treatment. She says, yeah, that was a great night. So that all came around, after almost 40 years.
Wow.
Knowing the whole story.
That's great. Remember, you said in the book that Jay took you to Ma Maison. Which was
Friday at noon at Ma Maison, baby.
That was the place that in the 1970s and 80s, I'll tell you a story about that. When my Aunt Bobby came out here to visit from Florida in the summer of 79, she was married to a real-life Tony Soprano for about 40 years. And she was staying at a Beverly Hills hotel, the one that Eddie Murphy stayed at in Beverly Hills Cop. And she said to the concierge, could you tell me a restaurant where celebrities hang out? And he said, tell you what, here's a place that has an unlisted telephone number. This is their number, unlisted. Make a reservation and you'll get in. And we did. And I didn't recognize anybody there. My parents did, and so did my aunt and her kids. And my dad and I were in the men's room. And my dad said, Josh, guess who's out there? I said, who? Rod Stewart. Really? Now don't get too excited. Yeah. And we go out, and I see him and his then wife, Alana Hamilton. So I just run up to the table and go, I know you. You're Rod Stewart. My dad has all your tapes. Yes, I am. What's your name? I said, oh, and there was a cassette on the table. I said, there's one of your tapes right there. Yeah, it's broken. It got all wet. I said, yeah, last week my dad's tape got chewed up by the tape player. And we had a great 5 or 10 minute conversation. Didn't get the autograph, didn't get a picture, but it was just a night I won't forget.
That's cool. And I actually have a Ma Maison ashtray.
Wow.
I know. Someday I'll put it on eBay. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't smoke.
I don't either. My dad does, but I don't. I remember the place was a really interesting place. It was like an old house. That's where the bar was and the kitchen. And then you dined outside, and they had this like white sheet metal roof to protect you from the elements and AstroTurf on the ground.
And they always would park like a Rolls Royce right in front of the place.
That's right.
Yeah, real snazzy.
Whatever happened? Well, the place closed down in 1985, I remember, and I'm not even sure what's there now. I don't think it's even the building's long gone.
Well,
I think
it moved briefly. There's a hotel across from the Beverly Center, and I think Patrick tried to get something going there, but it had just lost its mystique by that point.
Yeah. I guess once Wolfgang Puck left, it pretty much went downhill after that.
Well, and it's just, it's hard to be constantly trendy, and also it was like David Beagleman was like one of the people that would go there all the time, and I guess like maybe once he got arrested for that whole incident with Cliff Robertson, tell the kids on your radio show to look it up. But there was a big scandal involving David Beagleman and Cliff Robertson where Beagleman said that he wrote a check to Cliff Robertson for, I think it was $100,000. And Cliff Robertson said, I never got that money. I never worked for him. And that was like a big downfall. And Beagleman might have been the president of MGM at the time. It was a big scandal.
Now, speaking of restaurants that were once trendy but aren't anymore, I remember you mentioned at the end of the book that some friends of yours opened their home to you and the other NBC pages during Christmas time. And one thing that stood out, real, genuine Chasen's chili. How did they get that recipe?
Well, it's sweet. The Ari, the man who had this catering company, was one of the maitre d's at Chasen's, and he just maybe about a year and a half ago passed away. And this last Christmas that we celebrated with the pages was our first year without Chasen's chili.
Wow. And it was interesting because I just remember everybody talked about Chasen's, and I never went there. How many times did you get to go to Chasen's yourself?
Well, a couple times on dates because I was a lot of fun. But there was one time that all the pages got together, and they said, let's all have a real grown-up, nice dinner at Chasen's. And Tim ordered what was I can't describe how enormous it was, but it was crushed ice in this huge domed silver presentation, and all of the different seafood was stuck in it. Whether it was crab legs or shrimp or lobster. So he ordered 3 of those for the table.
Wow!
And I had to leave early because I had a performance I was doing that evening. And I just left Tim a check, and I said, just fill out the check however much it is. And I think I'd had like 1 Diet Coke or something and a crab leg and left. Mm-hmm. And he wrote the check, and it was like $75. I was like, what? And these seafood things were just enormously expensive. And to this day, we're all still saying that Tim can't order for us anymore.
Well, also, I got a question. Since you grew up here in Southern California, before there was NBC Studios Burbank, there was NBC Radio City on Sunset and Vine. That was the original home also of KNBH, later KRC, now KNBC Channel 4. And the West Coast Vice President for Corporate and Media Relations, Jay Michelis, I'm not sure if that's pronounced.
Jay Michael, or is it Jay Michaels? Is that who you're referring to?
Yeah, Jay Michaels. I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Jay Michaels.
He was a page there. Did you ever get to go to that particular Radio City at Sunset and Vine yourself when you were a kid?
No, I did not. I've seen the there's postcards that look like drawings of the place. I've seen that before, but no, I'm not that old.
Well, you have been a really little kid. I wasn't sure whether you as a little kid, maybe a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 4-year-old
but keep in mind also back in the day too, the pages were all men. back in the day, because why would a woman want to have a job outside the home? So it wasn't until like the mid-'70s that the women were even given jobs as ushers. They were called guidettes. And then by the time I got to NBC in '76, they were just allowing women into the page program. That's why when they go like, who are some famous people who are pages? And it's like Regis Philbin, Hugh Downs, Chuck Barris, Peter Marshall, Hollywood Square host was a page. They're mostly men's names that come up.
Wow. And do you remember the name of the first female page at NBC by chance? I'm maybe in the book, but I can't remember now.
No, I don't know that that's even known. But now I'm going to go look it up someplace if somebody knows. There was recently a 90th anniversary commemoration. I don't want to say celebration because they kind of dropped the ball on that. But I'll go on to their website and see if they have a picture of this poor woman or any kind of information to see who it might have been.
Now, as a page at NBC Burbank, did they ever offer you guys the chance to travel to the headquarters at Rockefeller Center to see how things worked there?
No, but I went on my own years later, and their tour was really fascinating. It was very different than what we did. A lot of it was based on the radio aspect of how 30 Rock was established. But now I understand, I think the tour is like over $40 a person to go on the NBC tour in Burbank. So ours was $1.90 when I gave the tour.
And you were making, what, $2.10 an hour, was it, or $1.70 an hour?
When I left the page staff, it was $2.25 an hour, and my apartment rent was $225 a month. That's how I remember it.
Well, I hope that the NBC pages in New York are being paid at least $40 an hour to cover the cost of the $40 tour.
I would hope so, too. God bless them. And I hope to be back there in the spring, and I hope I could get a free tour. Oh,
definitely. Because today the NBC studios in Burbank are owned by Warner Brothers, and the studios are still under renovation. Or have they? Do you know when they're going to have the grand opening or grand reopening of those studios by chance?
Well, they're unveiling different aspects of this development. It's going to be many, many years. Days of Our Lives, I think, is still taped there. Although it's on the Peacock, it's not on the network. It's still on Peacock. In what we used to call the back 40, where Johnny Carson took off in his helicopter, they've built this enormous office building, and I think it was Frank Gehry who designed it, and it has this optical illusion where it looks like the building is falling on top of the 134 freeway. And eventually they're going to try to connect the main Warner Brothers lot to what was the NBC lot and have like some kind of a pedestrian bridge that connects the two facilities. And I've heard different things being said that it might be a mixed-use building where they might have some retail as well as apartments or condos there. So it's a huge expansion project, not that much different than what they're doing over at CBS Television City at Beverly and Fairfax, where they're going to make that. They're preserving some of the stages that are there, but then they're going to build office buildings and apartments and connect it to what is the Grove area at a certain point.
Yeah, because The Price is Right just moved from Studio 33, the Bob Barker studio at Television City, to Glendale. Which is kind of weird to think that I live 5 minutes away now from where The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal are currently made.
And I hope you go down and enjoy the shows being taped sometimes, because maybe your listeners don't know it's free to go see a TV show being taped.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I'm wondering how much because on The Price is Right, when they were at Television City, people would be camped out all night on Fairfax and Beverly to try to see if they would get into possibly be contestants on the show. I'm wondering how many people camp overnight now in the new Glendale location. There's not really anything across the streets in that industrial area.
As we are recording this show, there's still a lot of COVID restrictions that are taken into consideration for the audience size. So they don't accommodate as many people as they once did. So while there might be, tickets available, there's not a lot, and people are not encouraged to, wait hours and hours online to get in, because there's just not going to be the same capacity.
That's right, yeah. Oh, quick question. The first season of Supermarket Sweep, I remember they had the items several supermarket items come to life where they had some people dressed as like a chicken or a stick of butter.
Thank God I was not a part of that, where they would have like gorillas chasing people around and stuff like that. No, I wasn't a part of that. But you know what? I should probably do this. Let me add this about Supermarket Sweep, because it's kind of cool information.
Mm-hmm.
When Supermarket Sweep was first on the air in the late 60s, they used real supermarkets, and people would run up and down the aisles and grab the items. And what would happen is if they were grabbing the steaks and the poultry and the fish, the fluids from those things would get on people's clothes, and people would be slipping and sliding on the floor, and it would get really stinky, too, under the hot lights. So when they brought Supermarket Sweep back, Al Howard, who created the show, he went to Mexico, and he had molds made of all the different cuts of meat, the different types of, chicken wings, chicken legs, different hams, chicken legs, chicken wings, whole rotisserie chickens, and they were all made out of resin.
Wow.
So when they would see it, you would see it in the supermarket on our show, which we recreated an entire supermarket on one of the sound stages at NBC. So they would run up and down the aisle, and this way all the juices and everything wouldn't get all over people's clothes. But it was a genuine supermarket. The only thing that we had to replace was the breads every once in a while, because sometimes a cameraman would get like a close shot of people getting the bread, and you'd see a cockroach in it or something like that. But no, we had a great time. That's a show that they tried to bring it back, and they kind of tinkered with the formula a little bit, and it didn't quite work. If they just kept it as its basic standard show, I think the show would be running forever.
Well, the most recent version, the great thing about the version with Bill Malone, and then, of course, the one with David Ruprecht, was the hosts were serious. They cared about the contestants. Not that the most recent host didn't care about the contestants. She was just yelling, get that squash, get that beef, get that money. I'm like, dude, take a chill pill. This is just kind of like rattling on the brain. I mean,
well, also they had these things where like, oh, I'll make some flowers for you. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking down, and the contestant wasn't in control of their destiny. Which I like shows where the contestant can control their destiny a bit more than that.
Yeah, it was just I was like, please, why couldn't they bring David Ruprecht and have Randy West or Johnny Gilbert announcing it? I
agree, and have me writing it.
There we go.
That's what I'm in favor of. I'll tell you another little thing that happened at Supermarket Sweep is on 9/11, I was home and I got a phone call from Al Howard. Where are you? Why aren't you at work? And I said, 'cause of what's happening. And he said, no, come to work. I need you here. So I went to NBC, and at the time they were saying, don't come to any media centers because they were fearing that there would be some kind of an incident from the terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there writing my little, wishbone salad dressing, little rhymes and things like that. And I'm hearing this announcement that keeps going off saying, will all non-essential personnel please leave the building? And I'm like, oh, gosh, here I am writing game show questions. But nope, stayed there all day.
Wow. Did Al Howard even know what was going on? I mean...
Oh, yeah. He had a show to churn out. He needed people working for him.
Oh, goodness. That's just strange. I mean, dude.
Well, and, maybe it was a pleasant distraction for him, too, because of how scary everything was that day.
That's true. I mean, one of the cruelties in show business is they say the show must go on, even if there's tragedy happening in a life personally, production has to be done. I thought 9/11 was one of the exceptions, but I guess not in certain cases.
No, it was pretty darn scary to be there, too. I got to say that. But the show did go on.
This is the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. We're talking with Shelley Herman, award-winning writer and the author of the book My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. And next time, we're going to conclude the interview with one of the most important lessons Shelley has learned in show business, as well as some cool stories from the movie Man on the Moon that her husband Randall Carver appeared in.